Hi, welcome to my channel or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Tay and this is Ask Tay Anything. But I'm pretty sure I might change my name because no one's asked me anything. So I don't know. I might change it just to like my name, um, like my name on Instagram or whatever, or on YouTube. I mean, TikTok. But I don't know. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If I should keep it or if I should just change it like to Taylor Moon or whatever. So today I don't have a host. I hate not having a co-host. I'm your host, but I don't have a co-host and I hate not having a co-host because I suck at keeping conversations going and I don't know. I just feel like I'm annoying and I'm sorry. But I just want to take a moment and say thank you to all of my subscribers because I looked today and I have 65 subscribers. Some of you might not think that's a lot, but just stop and imagine 65 people in a room. That's a lot of people. So that's cool. So our husband is not here. He is on a man's trip with his friends. And I am so new to YouTube still that I don't have my like niche or whatever. So I felt like these next couple of videos are going to be a little different so I can see what like tracks. So today, since I'm home alone and I am a weirdo freak and I love being scared, I'm going to read some scary stories that I found off of Reddit and we're going to see if I can hang. But while I was undergrad, I worked at a local coffee house that was rumored to be haunted. I didn't really believe in all of that, so I didn't put much thought while I worked my shifts. The place closed late during the weekends, so I would sometimes be there until 2 a.m., washing dishes and cleaning up for the morning crew. One night, I was in the back washing dishes after closing. My shift lead was counting the register, and my coworker was cleaning everything else. So the dishwasher area was in a nook in the back where all the drinks and waters were stored. As I was washing the dishes one night, I literally jumped up a foot off the ground in terror as I hear a dog barking directly behind me. That's scary. I would jump. It sounded like it was in my ear. The problem is, there is absolutely no way a dog could be in there because of it being a crammed nook, and no dog wandered in at any point. The other creepy part was that while I was trying to make sense of what had happened, I see the figure of a man wearing a white tee walk by and go into the walk-in fridge. I called out thinking it may have been my coworker, but they were both up front. At that moment, the place got ice cold. When that happened, I freaked the hell out and asked if one of my coworkers could stay in the back with me for the remainder of the night. Felt. My other coworker confirmed my experience with experiences of their own. The creepiest of those being the piano in the dining area playing on its own, and finding the chairs they had just put on the table later found back down on the ground, and various books found on the floor or in the bathroom when they should have not been there. That's creepy. Oh my gosh. So I used to like work in a restaurant too, and I'm telling you, when I was doing my side work, so side work is when like it's really slow at the end of the night and you're cleaning up. It's creepy. Like when you're sitting in the corner by yourself in like a dark corner of the restaurant and it's quiet and you're just folding silverware by yourself, it's eerie. Or if you're in the back, yeah, I hated being in the back. I don't know. I had a grandma that had a stroke before my birth. She could not speak, walk, move. She was locked in her mind, so she watched me grow up until I was around 4 or 5-ish. I'm sorry to hear that. I woke up one night and she was standing in my bedroom, smiling, and she told me to not cry tomorrow and tucked me in. I woke up tucked in like that, and I was told by my dad my grandma had died in her sleep. I had a really tough childhood, but I was never alone, be it God or my Nana. Somebody kept me safe and made me survive until now. I really never felt alone on the streets, in the shelters. I never felt alone. I always had the feeling somebody was with me, protecting me, comforting me. When I tried to end this live, something did stop me. When I was hungry, I would find money or food when I was sad. I would find a friend when I needed shelter. I would find one when I needed help. I found help. So somebody did keep me safe. Now I have kids of my own. A friend once asked me, "Why don't you ever worry about your kids or money?" I told her, "I have a friend who keeps me safe, so I don't need to worry." That's really sweet. Growing up, I always wanted to go on a bike ride at night. Something about it seemed really cool to me. It wasn't until I was 13 that my mom finally let me. She told me to wear my helmet, have my phone, and take a flashlight, and she set the parameters for where I was allowed to go. She gave me about 4 miles, which was to me a lot. So, right after the sunset, I was off. I loved it. There were no people out walking their dogs, no kids running around. The temperature was perfect, etc. It was really fun. So fun that I ignored the limits my mom set. Uh-oh. You see, where I was biking was all walking paths. It was one of those grassy areas between two neighborhoods. There's this long path that went at least 600 feet at a 25-degree angle. I was flying down this hill, having an absolute blast, and darted right through the perimeters. My mom set these limits for a reason. Everything on the inside was close to houses and people. The outside, more specifically, the places where the path I was on led to, was barren. I rode along this path for 10 minutes before I could only see some of the light of the houses on the inside of the limits. After 15 minutes of riding along this dirt path, I hear singing, and that's when I would have turned around. It sounded about 30 to 40 feet in front of me. I stopped riding to hear it better. It was a woman's voice. She was singing Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles, but she wasn't singing the words, just the melody of the vocals. Her voice was strange. You know how when you have phlegm in your throat, your voice gets scratchy? That's what her voice sounded like. I inch forward to try and see her. I get close enough to see the silhouette of hair bouncing up and down, like she was headbanging. I decided to get my flashlight out. I'm thinking maybe this person is in need of help or something, or maybe this is an insane person and the light will scare them away. So I take the flashlight out of my pocket and point it at her and turn it on. The moment the light hit her, she stopped moving completely. She was facing away from me. She had disgusting hair that seemed to be sticking together in clumps. Some of her hair was ripped off, too. Ugh. She was wearing a very oversized bright red hoodie. I was almost too scared to move. I think she was too. I conjured up so much bravery as I could and said sorry in a very, oops, this is the wrong room kind of way. She didn't respond. I turned off the flashlight and put it back in my pocket. Why would you do that? Just as I was turning my bike around, she screams. She screams in an awful, awful high pitched voice. I damn near shit myself as I throw myself back onto my bike. I hear her voice getting closer to me. I book it as fast as I can. I don't look behind me and I don't stop pedaling. Her screaming grew quieter and quieter until it dissolved into the howling of the wind. Oh my goodness. I wonder if you're from the Appalachian Mountains and encountered like an SW or something. That's really creepy. That gives me the chilly willies. I was playing around with a radio once when I was a kid, just slowly spanning through the static trying to find a station. I had found an old television antenna, attached it to the side of our house, and ran a wire out my window to it with an alligator clip attached to the radio antenna, allowing me to get a way broader range of signals. So I'm sitting there early in the morning, like 2 a.m., slowly sweeping frequencies, and suddenly I get to the station that's playing this very weird crackling sound. It sounds sort of like crackling knuckles or maybe Rice Krispies cereal, but with a fixed rhythmic pattern instead of being random. I sat there listening to it for a second. Then it suddenly stopped, and this faint voice says, "It doesn't work. We're already dead. We're already dead." It took a second for the weight of the words to hit me, but when they did, it freaked me the F out and almost threw the radio across the room. I'm pretty sure it was just someone messing around with a radio transmitter, but damn, if I didn't scare the shit out of me at the time. That's a sick joke. But also, what if it wasn't? What if it was actually like ghosts? Spooky, scary. All right, ready? My parents bought their first house back in 1972. It was a fixer-upper, but they decided to move it right away and fix things as time, money permitted. Within a few days of moving in, the new neighbors came over to introduce themselves. They also let my parents know that the previous owners had moved out after a nasty divorce. They had lost their second baby from SIDS, and their relationship went downhill from there. My parents were horrified, more so because they were newly pregnant and couldn't imagine going through such a thing. They eventually pretty much forgot all about it. Life went on. They were in love with their new life and their new house. In preparation for the baby, they decided to wallpaper the nursery. Now, my dad told my mom there was no need in wallpapering the inside of the closet. She insisted. She kept kneeling down, scraping off old paint inside of the closet when her eyes fell upon something that made her blood turn ice. Written in crayon at above eye level for a kindergartner in childish scrawl was, "I killed the baby." Oh my, could you imagine? Absolutely not. Oh my God. Mm-mm. No, no, no. Okay. This was a few years ago on a night scuba dive. There were 8 of us in the group, including our dive master and his assistant. We had just finished our dive and were gathered up in a circle ready to ascend and get out of the water when my dive master freezes. He takes his flashlight and points. Do you hear that? It's somebody mowing. He takes his flashlight and pointing it outside our circle of divers. He catches something circling us with a beam. Turns out it was a 12-foot long great white shark. At this point, half of the group was trying to keep the shark illuminated as it circles us, and remarkably, everybody stayed calm. The only thing going through my mind were iterations of these two thoughts. Don't look like a yummy, delicious, fatty seal, and that I hope I taste terrible. My dive master gets our attention and slowly puts his thumb up and then makes an upward motion. We will begin to ascend. We all begin to ascend, and the shark keeps with us until we were maybe 10 feet from the surface. Then it turned off into the darkness and was gone. I did not go back into the ocean for about a week after that. Okay, hear me out. What if the shark wasn't there to hurt you? What if the shark was there to protect you from something else? Yeah, and that's why I don't want to go to ever. I don't like the ocean. I will go to the mountains. Take me 27 feet up. I don't care. 27,000 feet above sea level. I wouldn't, I can't. I can't scuba dive. I would never go in a submarine or a submersible. No, could never be me. All right. When I was 7, I woke up in the middle of the night with an earache. I decided to tell my mom and stepdad and walked out of my room. Someone was sitting on the chair in the living room, about 3 feet away from my bedroom door. The person looked strange. The face was just kind of distorted, but it was dark and I couldn't see well. Mom? I asked. The person shook their head, and I started getting scared. Mike? The person shook their head again. I decided the best course of option was to go back to bed so I wouldn't have to walk past this person. I climbed in bed and closed my eyes for a second before opening them and seeing the person standing in my doorway, smiling madly and nodding furiously. Edit. I screamed at the top of my lungs and closed my eyes. My stepdad came running out of his room in his underwear with a baseball bat. That was a scary sight in itself. There was nothing there but clothes my mom had folded and put on the chair. For the longest time, I told myself it was my cat sitting on the clothes. Oh my gosh. No, thank you. That's scary. While not actually eerie, it was probably the most scared I've ever felt in a moment. When I was about 13 or 14, I woke up in the middle of the night needing to go to the bathroom. I had one of those bunk beds, but where instead of a bottom bunk, there was a desk. For whatever reason, I started psyching myself out really bad. I sat up in my bed, staring into the pitch blackness, imagining a man with a knife standing under my bed, ready to kill me as soon as I put a foot down the ladder, or a torn face ghost girl in the hallway, or someone smiling and bloody at the turn into my bathroom. Basically, the usual freaky images. I tortured myself for a solid 20 minutes, then used another 10 to try and convince myself of being stupid and go to the bathroom. When I finally felt ready, I carefully stepped down the ladder, holding my breath, ready to feel my foot get harshly grabbed. I continued to the bathroom, slow and completely on edge. Well, I guess my mom was going to the bathroom at that time too, because she was right there in the hallway and she bumped into me. For the state of mind I was in at the time, getting bumped into just set me over the edge. I collapsed in the hallway in shock, started crying, and peed all over myself. My mom was stunned and apologetic, but not without a great deal of laughter and mockery first. Okay, I'm sorry, but I would have definitely pissed myself too. So don't feel bad. But what are the chances? Oh my God. I do that too, though. I'll watch a scary movie and then I'll have to watch like 45 minutes of Cartoon Network or something so I can go to sleep. So I go to the bathroom and be okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's find another one. To really get my story, you have to have an understanding of my third floor landing. There's a single set of stairs that lead up to it. Once on the landing is a T-shaped with an office the left, my bathroom the right, a straight ahead, and straight ahead is a bathroom with a shower. Okay, so it's a T-shaped landing, office on the left, bedroom on the right, bathroom in the front. Okay. Anyway, one night, 10 p.m., I'm taking a shower before I head to sleep. The glass panels on my shower is like that concave, convex glass that blurs everything, so everything was blurred and unclear. I glanced at the door and I see some kind of hand-like figure. Now, it was pitch black, so right there, it freaked me out because I came from a family of pale white flesh people. What freaked me out more was how the hand seemed to come through the door, or at least an angle where whomever the hand belonged to would be visible. All it did was hit the lights. That's it. No noise, no attack or anything. It just turned off the effing lights. So there I am, I just witnessed a phantom hand, and now I'm in my shower and it's pitch fucking black. I've never been so chilled to the bone before. Something about being in the darkness of the night, with the only noise being the water hitting the floor beneath me, just reduced me to the most primal state of pure fear I've ever been in. I eventually get myself to leave my shower and hit the lights. The relief that came over me was immense. I've never been able to explain it. The stairs up to the landing are old and creepy as hell. I would have heard someone come and go. No one was in my room or the office. Weirder still, nothing like it has ever happened since. Oh my gosh, I would have moved that night. What do you mean? But didn't it say that you're taking a shower and it's pitch black? So, right, it was pitch black. Oh, the hand was pitch black. Oh, it wasn't pitch black in the room. The hand was pitch black, and then the hand shut the lights off. Yeah, that sounds. Mm-mm. No thanks. No, thank you. I house sit for a family friend whenever she goes out of town. The woman who lives there is really into a bunch of spiritual stuff, new age stuff, Reiki, etc. The very first time I was house sitting, I was outside watering the plants. I was the only one there and had closed the door after me. From the driveway, there I was watering. I had a completely obstructed view of the front door. Okay, let's restart. I house sit for a family friend when she goes out of town. The woman who lives there is really into a bunch of spiritual stuff, new age stuff, Reiki, etc. The very first time I was house sitting, I was outside watering the plants. I was the only one there and had closed the door after me. From the driveway where I was watering, I had a completely unobstructed view of the front door, the only door that was unlocked at the time. When I went back inside, there on the little table next to the front door was a half-eaten cookie. The table had been completely clear when I went outside, and I hadn't seen cookies that looked like that anywhere in the house. Nothing too creepy, but very puzzling and unsettling. When the woman returns, I mention it to her, and she laughs and says she gets ghosts all the time. I'm a fairly skeptical person, but honestly, ghosts were the best explanation. The next time I was over, I was going to the bathroom around 10:30. The house itself is fairly all old and creaks from time to time, but nothing too loud or disruptive. While I was going to the bathroom, comes a single loud knock from the door from the other side of the bathroom door. This wasn't a little creak or pop from the house. It was a loud, determined rap on the door. It was enough to scare my poop back in for the rest of the night. Good Lord. Okay. One morning at about 1 a.m., I got a phone call from my little sister's cell. She lived a time zone to the east, so it was 2 a.m. there. It woke me up, and I immediately sensed that something was wrong. I picked up the phone and groggily said hello when I heard a muffled woman's voice, possibly my sister's, say, "Please help me." She sounded terrified and desperate. I immediately thought I was having a taken moment. My sister is being kidnapped, tortured, and it was all she could do to call me for help. Should I hang up and dial 911? Should I yell into the phone? Should I keep listening and try to pick up some kind of relevant information? I really wished I had one of those fancy phones recording devices that the taken guy had right then. I opted to keep listening, and as I did, I occasionally heard muffled yelling and screaming. Much to my horror, her phone must have been hidden away pretty well. Then something strange happened. I heard what was clearly my sister's voice, also muffled, but completely calm. I didn't hear what she said, but it was a very casual, conversational tone. Then I noticed, for all the first time that there was also scary music along with the yelling and stuff in the background. My sister butt dialed me in the middle of a goddamn horror flick at 2 in the morning. Yeah, sounds about like something I would do. But I would be scared though at first. Like I would be the one to butt dial, but then on the other end, I would be like scared at first and think that the music was like in my head because it's 1 in the morning. Well, I'm probably dreaming, but they weren't. So my cousin had a child about 8 years ago. My great grandmother, very beloved woman, all around great person, my grandma Shaver, passed away while his wife was pregnant, and only about 2 weeks before she was due. This was a big deal for a few reasons. My cousin would have been the first of his generation in my mother's side of the family to have a child, therefore, would have been my grandma Shaver's first great great grandchild. 5 generations alive at the same time, it would have been pretty cool. But she passed away from a stroke, and it was very tragic. Fast forward a couple of years, my cousin and his wife are showing their daughter family pictures. She's approximately 3 or 4 years old at the time, asking her, "Who's this?" and saying if she remembers names of aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, etc. They sort of skip over a pic of my grandma Shaver, and she puts her hand on the pic and says, "That's Grandma Shaver." My cousin said he was a bit uncomfortable and asked, "Do you remember hearing us talk about her?" And oh no, according to him, his daughter looked him right in the eyes and said, "No, but she visits me and talks to me all the time." He said he didn't sleep right for a few weeks. Good thing we're all sure if she is a ghost, she is probably the most kind, gentle ghost there is. Still creeps me out. Crazy. I think kids definitely have their veil definitely is thinner when you're a kid than it is when you're an adult. I used to have a truck that I swore had the ghost of a dead baby in it. I used to get home late from my job as a dishwasher, and after I parked and was sitting in my driveway with the engine off, I would hear this really faint sound of a baby crying. Late at night when it was quiet, it used to make my arm hair stand on end. I used to get home and hop out of the car in fear of hearing it. One night I decided to sit there and just listen, trying to pinpoint the sound. Eventually, I discovered that it was indeed not a dead baby, but when I undid my seatbelt buckle, the old spring off the seatbelt retractor would slowly start pulling the belt in, creating a faint noise that sounded like wailing. Crazy. Literally me, though. Okay. I was once in a hot tub with some friends late at night, and we were all telling some stories. One of the guys told us this one, a story of a girl he knows. Not sure if it's true, but multiple people in the hot tub who knew her verified it was true. Let's get into the story. So one day, this girl was called over to babysit. She did it a lot for these people, so it was routine for her. Anyways, she was told to put the kids to bed at 9, and she did. After she put them to bed, she started watching TV and doing homework, waiting for the parents to come home. But then she started hearing some noises coming out of the basement, like pans falling and stuff. She just ignored it and thought it was the washing machine or something. Anyway, a little later, she starts hearing the noises again. She decides to call the cops and tell them she was hearing noises coming out of the basement at the house she's babysitting at. The lady at the station told her there's a patroller in her area and that he'll be at the house in about 20 minutes. That's way too long. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. Anyways, in about 5 minutes, she hears a knock at the door. She answers, and it's a full SWAT team. She asked, "I thought they were just sending a patroller." And one of the guys told her, "After you hung up the phone, we heard a second phone on the line hang up, ended up There was a man in the basement listening to the conversation. The lady in the station waited and heard him hang up, then immediately sent the SWAT team to help. They went downstairs and caught him. He was wanted for multiple cases of rape. That's crazy. Why would they automatically send the SWAT team though? I mean, I don't know. That's crazy though. Imagine babysitting and then all of a sudden the SWAT team comes. Shh, I'd never babysit again. I have loads of creepy stories, but this is one of my favorites. A bit long, but good. In 20 in 2007, I finished college and was offered a position as an admin in a small town working with local law enforcement. It was a 6-month contract and paid really well, so all within a week I accepted the job, found a furnished place to live, and took off for my adventure. The town had just over 15,000 people, and the apartment I chose was on the top floor of a 3-story building that was built in the 1960s. It was quite large and had nice hardwood floors. The walls were somewhat thin, and I heard my neighbor a few times, especially at night when it was quiet. When I first got there, I knocked a few times with the intention to introduce myself. They never answered, even though I thought I had heard them inside. After a week, I assumed maybe it was a reclusive person, so I slipped a note under the door saying hello. I worked with the same officers all the time on rotating shifts, and 3 weeks into my stay, I was into the afternoon shift, which meant I was getting home around 2 a.m. As I came down the hallway of the building, I saw a light coming from under my neighbor's door and saw the shadow of feet under the door. And the peephole went dark as if they heard me and were looking to see who was in the hall. I figured if they wanted to say hello, they would have opened the door, so I simply have waved hello and went into my apartment. Over the next couple of weeks, this happened 3 to 4 times again. I was pretty sure I had a reclusive but nosy neighbor. Then, one night after work, I crawled into bed at 3 a.m. and could hear that my neighbor was moving around in the room of theirs that adjoined my bedroom. About 10 minutes later, the noises got louder and it started to get me worried. They had never been this loud, and it almost sounded as if they were being attacked or having a heart attack and knocking things over. I ran out of the apartment and started knocking loudly on their door, but they didn't answer. I called out to them saying I was worried about them, and if they didn't answer, I would call for help. Still no answer. I ran back into my apartment and could hear bangs through the walls, so I called the police station and asked my coworker to send an officer over. I went and knocked on my neighbor's door one more time, but no answer, and then headed down to the lobby to wait to the That scared me. It was my kitty. Hi, baby. I went and knocked on my neighbor's door one more time, but no answer, and then headed down to the lobby to wait for the officer who showed up within 5 minutes. I had gotten to know him a bit and went up and knocked on the door, but still no answer. I took him into my apartment, and we could still hear loud thumps every 5 to 10 seconds, and then a large bang. The officer asked if I could go get the building manager to open the door. She lived 1 block away, so I said I'd run over and get her. Luckily, she was a night owl and was watching TV. So I told her that my neighbor was being really loud and wouldn't answer the door, so she grabbed the keys and we headed over. The officer was waiting for us in the lobby, and she asked which apartment it was, and I told her 304. She looked at me weirdly and said 304 was empty. I said I had heard my neighbors making noises nearly every single day and had seen the light on and shadows under the door a few times. The officer said he heard the noises too and asked if 304 was the apartment that was above the carport, and she said yes. He replied that someone could easily climb up into the carport and perhaps there were squatters in the empty apartment. We went up to the manager, unlocked the door of the office, and the officer opened it. The apartment was dark and he turned the light on. He went in, and the manager and I were peeking in through the doorway. He went into the bedroom and came back out and said it was empty. We went in, and the place was spotless. All but two of the windows were locked and no sign of squatters. We all just stood there scratching our heads. The officer looked at me and said, "You're not crazy. I heard the banging too." I said maybe we scared them off and they had came and gone through the unlocked windows. We double checked that all windows were locked and headed out. On our way out, I looked down, and there on the floor was the note I had slipped under the door a few weeks earlier. We locked the apartment, and I said I'd keep an eye on it and called them both if I ever again saw the light on or heard noises. Fast forward almost 6 weeks, and I was again on afternoon shift. I come home at 2 a.m., and there was a light on. I quickly went into my apartment and could hear thumping from next door. I called the station and asked for an officer to come out and then called my building manager. I slipped down to the lobby and waited for them. A different officer showed up, and I knew him too. My building manager arrived, and all three of us headed upstairs. The light was off, and the building manager unlocked the door. The officer went in, and everything checked out. We checked the windows again, and they were still locked. I apologized and tried to rationalize it that I had just come off of 4 days of 14-hour shifts and was tired, but I knew I had seen the lights on and heard thumping. 2 weeks later, the apartment was rented out, and I got a chance to meet my new neighbors. I told them to keep an eye out because we were sure squatters had been coming in and out, and I relayed the stories to them. My final week there, the station had a barbecue, and we were talking about the squatters there no one ever saw. I told the first officer about the second call out and how all the windows were locked this time, but I knew I had seen the light on and heard thumping next door. He asked if I wanted to hear something funny, and I said sure. He said he was going to tell me earlier but didn't want to freak me out. He proceeded to tell me 3 months before I moved in, he personally responded to a call to my neighbor's apartment for a very bloody suicide. The person had done the deed had second thoughts and called for help. When they arrived, the person was unconscious but had obviously panicked, and a chair, lamp, and side table had been knocked over, and there was blood everywhere. Unfortunately, they passed away before getting to the hospital. I just stared at him, and he reminded me he had heard the banging too the night I called him over. What? I asked the building manager about it the day I moved out and asked why she hadn't told me. She laughed and said, "Oh, honey, I believe in ghosts, but didn't know if you did too, and I didn't want to scare you. I know you heard and saw things. I believe you, and I doubt it was squatters." I was about 7 to 8 years old, and normally after school, my mom sets up the tub so I can have my afternoon bath. Keep in mind that my bathroom was tiny and there were no room for someone to hide in without being spotted immediately. So my mom watches me go to the tub, gives me a toy, and walks away to the kitchen to finish cooking. I wanted to splash around in the water with my toy, so I closed the glass sliding door of the tub. As soon as I closed the sliding door, it quickly opened on its own. My tiny little mind couldn't fathom how that happened. A few seconds later, the sliding door rapidly opened and closed for a few seconds. I started screaming, and my mother ran to the bathroom to find me crying in the tub. I told her what happened, but she didn't believe me. The sliding door was closed when she found me crying in the bathroom. For over 20 years, it bugged me. Was it part of my imagination? It felt completely and entirely real. I believe you. I believe that somebody shut that shower door and it was probably a ghost. I was buying a house last year, and one of the places I decided to look at was a renovated farmhouse. The main building itself was pretty nice, and I was considering it an option. But then the realtor told me to check out the old barn that was on the property. From the outside, it looked like it could be converted into a really nice workshop. I walked inside and almost immediately felt something fall on my head. I brushed it away and did the get it off me dance until it fell into the ground. It was a tiny spider. Ugh. Then another dropped on my head. I repeated my freak out and got another, larger spider out of my hair. Then I made the mistake of looking up. There was a huge black spot on the wall, which I realized after my eyes focused was the biggest effing cluster of spiders I have ever seen in my life. In that moment, I was a faster sprinter than Usain Bolt. That's disgusting. Anyways, you guys, I hope that you are still with me and listen to those scary stories. Some of them were scary, some of them were just weird. But yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do next week, but I hope you are here with me and we get to hang out. So, thank you and comment. Tell me if I should change my name. Bye, guys.